This week on Game Master's Arsenal, we're starting a longer running series because there's a lot of monsters in this category to talk about. So we're just going to be starting with, of course, their basic version. Of course, I've been promising this for a little bit, and I finally got everything that I need to do it. This week, we're talking about the Illithid, or as it's colloquially called, the Mind Flayer. I'm your GM Isaiah, and welcome to Game Master's Arsenal. Of course, the Illithid is a little bit more of a complicated creature because it is an intelligent creature. Now, intelligent creatures have different stories. The difference between normal Illithids and, Illithids and normal creatures is that Illithids are a pseudo hive mind bound to an elder brain. Now, we're not talking about the elder brain today because we're kind of just covering the different parts, different types of things in an Illithid group is simply different life cycles of an Illithid. So the Mind Flayer is the most basic version. It is when a tadpole is inserted into a thrall and transformed through this process called seromorphosis into a Mind Flayer. Now, the Mind Flayers are bound to an elder brain, and a normal Mind Flayer doesn't really have the potential of breaking free from the elder brain. Now, what that means is that most Illithids that you see, unless the elder brain is already dead, and they haven't yet found a new elder brain to serve or withered and died, they will all be in service to a colony that is working towards the grand design of restoring the Illithid Empire. Now, that may sound a little bit complicated if you haven't heard the history. Now, Illithids do have a history. The history of the Illithids, they just kind of showed up one day and took over the multiverse from the astral sea. They just kind of showed up. Nobody quite knows. Some think they came from the future. Some think that it was people who went into the far realms and came back Illithids, but we don't know where they came from. And that's interesting for such a unique enemy that it's like they don't have an origin. They just showed up and started a war and conquered everything with their psychic abilities. Now, moving on from that history there, the modern Illithids you see after they conquered, the Gith rebelled, of course. The Gith rebelled, slaughtered the Illithids, destroyed their empire, made sure they lost their technology, and sent them fleeing as refugees into the different planes, mostly the material plane. Now, on the material plane, they hide in the Underdark, or even in like entrances above the Underdark. They are just hiding out, hoping that the Gith don't find them, and that they'll be able to eventually restore what they are, which are rulers, and they still believe themselves to be the apex creature, the best of the best. And because of that, that leads them to the supremacist design of let's enslave everybody around us. And so that definitely plays into how you should run a Mind Flayer. A Mind Flayer is a supremacist. It either sees the characters it encounters as a potential thrall, as food, or a valuable slave. And because of that, nature leads to very few good encounters for characters, most characters will not be serving a Mind Flayer willingly. When you're building your story around Illithids, you're mostly going to be either avoiding them or hunting them. Now, if you're hunting them, that's an entire story of itself, that it's like, okay, we first need to find out what they're doing. We need to find out where their camp is, where their colony is. Sorry, not camp. Sometimes they're camps, sometimes they're colonies. Illithids, when they try to take over a small village or something, they'll come in, they'll set up an outpost nearby, and then slowly take over the town, and then draw people in. They have powerful magic, so their psychic abilities are able to fool a lot of creatures. You may have Illithid spies that are like, oh yeah, they're thralls, but they still serve the populace. They still do a lot. But when you're building that story around the Illithids, mostly it's the best structure I have for a mid-level to a mid to high-level party is, of course, you find out their Illithid spies, whether that be intellect devourers, whether that be thralls. You find their camp. You either eliminate the camp and start searching for the colony, or you get information from the camp to find the colony, and then the extermination of the colony plays out like a dungeon run. Illithid colonies are extremely dangerous. Illithids as a whole are extremely dangerous, and when we talk about them in combat, you'll see why. But when you're building that story, you want these things to be the villain. The Elder Brain will be the big bad most of the time. An Elder Brain in a campaign is like a dragon. You will never have a minor dragon. Even if your party kills the thing, they will be talking about the fight with the Elder Brain. They will be talking about the Illithid camp because they are never minor. Because of the nature of Illithids in a story sense, they are either a minor big bad that they're going to fight over the course of multiple sessions, or they're the big bad of the campaign. And either way you go down, it's dangerous. Fighting an Illithid camp and fighting Illithids at all is extremely dangerous, considering the fact that they utilize, what are they called? Intellect devourers as scouts. You know, the creatures that can attack, stun, and then immediately kill a player of any level. These things are not easy, and like they get more and more dangerous the more they come in. So we might as well talk about their stat block, because their stat block leads to why they're so dangerous. Now, part of the reason they're dangerous... Oh, that's the wrong one. That's the spellcaster. Part of the reason they're dangerous is because they are so under-CR'd for what they do. Now, the Mind Flayer, of course, armor class 15. It's a medium aberration. 11 strength, 12 dex, 12 con, 19 intelligence, 17 wisdom, 17 charisma. Smart, wise, charismatic. That's a dangerous combination on any character, because this means it can try to talk its way out. If the characters are not familiar with Mind Flayers, these things can convince them. Their saving throws, they get a +7 to intelligence, a +6 to wisdom, and a +6 to charisma. Those are your primary spellcasting saving throws. So it has a really good one for its skills, +7 to arcana, +6 to deception, +6 to insight, +6 to perception, +6 to persuasion, +4 to stealth, dark vision up to 120 feet, passive perception 16. As far as languages, it knows deep speech, undercommon, and of course it can use telepathy up to 120 feet. Now, that stat block, I just threw a bunch of numbers out at you guys. And essentially, it's just setting up its stat spread. If you were to actually build this out on a character sheet, Roll20 does it really well, and honestly, I should start pulling up the Roll20s ones. The stat spread on this thing: high charisma, high passive perception, so sneaking up on this thing is very difficult. It knows deep speech and undercommon. Of course, it can see in the dark, so you can communicate with it. I don't know if you want to communicate with it, but you can if you want. Of course, as far as special abilities goes, it has magic resistance, so advantage against spells and other magical effects. So not only are the primary spell casting of this thing, spell casting like saving throws that it'll make, wisdom, intelligence, charisma, are +7s. They're +7 at advantage. And then, of course, it has a spell casting modifier. Now, there is a variant of the Mind Flayer called the Mind Flayer Arcanist. The Arcanist essentially just double-dipped into the spell casting, so it just has a lot more spells. A base Mind Flayer still has these spells. It can detect thoughts, it can levitate, and then once per day, it can cast Dominate Monster and Plane Shift. which means it can get out of a fight really easily, and it can change who's on its team very quickly. Your tank, it's now working for this Mind Flayer. Good luck. Now, that also means it's a highly intelligent creature in combat. It can set up ambushes. It can run complex strategies. Its actions, of course, it has a +7 to hit on its tentacle attack, 2d10 +4 psychic damage, which means if you rolled 5/5, it's still got a 14 damage, which is a good one for a CR7. If it's medium or smaller, it becomes grappled. It doesn't say it makes a grapple check. It doesn't do anything like that. It is just grappled. DC 15 for an escape, and it must succeed on an intelligence saving throw or be stunned. This thing is taking the tank hostage. It grapples. Intelligence is a dump stat for a lot of people, which is why the Mind Flayers are so dangerous, because so many of their abilities require intelligence saving throws. And when you have an 8 in intelligence, a 10 in intelligence, you're not getting bonuses to that. Wizards are pretty much your only option for saving against these things. Everyone else pretty much takes intelligence as a dump stat, which is a huge problem. Because it's like DC 15, no modifier. Ooh, you have a quarter chance to succeed. Or DC 15, -1 modifier. Oh, 14 out of 20, you fail this. So you have a 70% chance of just failing this outright. And then, of course, you're to be stunned, which leads into its next attack. If you can't escape it, or you're stunned, which means you don't get to take actions, and it doesn't say you get to repeat that saving throw. That's another issue with these tentacles. You do not get to repeat that saving throw. You're stunned as long as he is grappling, which means somebody else has to come and free you. That eliminates AoE spells. That eliminates a lot of spells that, like, just AoE, just lightning bolt, fireball, anything like that somebody would throw at you to be like, yes, we'll take it out that way. Well, of course, you're now stunned, and it's using you as a hostage, leading into its next ability, which is Extract Brain. +7 to hit, reach 5 feet, 1 incapacitated humanoid grappled by the Mind Flayer. Kind of a caveat that it has to take, it has to be grappling you, which means it usually hit you with the tentacle, now you're stunned. When you're grappled by this thing and stunned, you are incapacitated. When you're stunned, you're incapacitated. It deals 10d10 piercing damage. You're stunned, you're grabbed, 10d10. I hope everybody else can throw enough stuff at you to get you out of this. The good news is the Mind Flayer does not have too much health. It has a average hit points of 71. 13d8, which is pretty good. Actually, it's a CR7. It's not the best. It's a low one, but of course, this thing is a heavy damage dealer. And then when it hits you with those 10d10, which is, if you roll 5s across the board, that's still 50 damage. At level 7, you can take a lot of people out with that. Of course, if this damage reduces the target to 0 hit points, the Mind Flayer kills the target by extracting and devouring its brain. So if you hit 0 with this thing, you're just dead. Worse than that, you're dead without a brain, which means Revivify does not work. You're missing a part, which means you need Resurrection, Reincarnation, or True Resurrection to bring you back. That is an issue. When this thing can kill a character, take them out of the fight permanently by reducing them to 0, maybe this thing gets the jump on you and takes the wizard out. Oh, that's not good. Because if it just hits you, I doubt the wizard's making a strength saving throw. I doubt the wizard's making a dexterity saving throw. They're getting stunned by that tentacle attack, and then they're getting their brain eaten. The tanks will have a hard time with this ability. Sure, it may not kill the tank, but it'll get the tank low. And at level 7, healing a tank to full to where it won't be able to just... Because this Mind Flayer will just tank another round and then devour the brain again. there is no recharge on this ability. So it just does that. If somebody's grappled and stunned, this thing eats them. And just keeps trying until it finally succeeds. Of course, the last ability that it has is why this creature is so low CR'd. Sorry, I misphrased that. This last ability, the Mind Blast, is why this creature, by DMs, is widely considered to be of a higher challenge rating than what they tell us. That, of course, is the Mind Blast. The Mind Flayer magically emits a psychic energy in a 60-foot cone, 60 feet out. Each creature in that area must make a DC 15 intelligence saving throw or take 4d8 plus 4, average of 22 damage, or be stunned for 1 minute. A creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of its turn. Guys, this is a problem. This is a huge problem. This ability can one-shot a party. Like, the Mind Blast goes off, everybody's stunned. Guess who's now dead? The tank is dead because he just gets grappled. Of course, when he's grappled, you're hoping it now has a free round. Everyone else is stunned. Some people get out of it, of course. Maybe half the party gets out of it by the turn the Mind Flayer's turn comes around again. Of course, Mind Flayers aren't usually fighting alone, which is the problem. Now, I'm going through the abilities first before I talk strategy, because understanding this thing's ability understands the strategy that it plays into. Now, the fact that this is on a 5 to 6 recharge, so it has a 1/3 chance of recharging every round, which means, in theory, you could get 2 off in a row. Odds are you're not going to get 2 Mind Blasts off in a row unless you have multiple Mind Flayers, which means this thing is going to open the fight with this. If it's at the top of the initiative, it's going to open the fight with the Mind Blast, catch everyone off guard, and then pick who it's going to target. Now, everybody makes their saving throw. Say half of them failed. Great. Half the party's still down. It's going and either taking one of the people who just got up if they don't have a good saving throw, or... Well, he wouldn't know if it's a good saving throw. As a DM, you can pick your targets. You know, if you see somebody in the back line dressed like a wizard, you assume they've got high intelligence. You see the cleric, you assume it's got wisdom. That's the thing. This thing is so smart. With an intelligence of 19 and being connected to the Elder Brain, this thing is so smart that it can do a lot. When this thing goes after somebody, it is going to kill them. So usually what it'll do is pick the tank. I think honestly, as a DM, your best strategy for giving your party a fighting chance is to have this thing target the tank. The tank might die. Oh yeah, the tank could easily die here. You go up against a Mind Flayer, you could easily lose a creature. Most likely, you are going to lose a creature, sadly. Now, that's not even if it's using its spellcasting. This thing does not need to use its spellcasting. But if it uses its spellcasting, the Dominate monster, it doesn't even need to pick its target now. It Mind Blasts. Everyone's stunned. It picks someone to dominate. Dominates them. Guess what? They're now on its side. And nobody's going to be able to get up to drop its concentration before that player gets to go just wail on somebody. Strategy with this thing, when you're building an encounter, if you are not trying to make this thing a serious threat, if you are trying to make sure this is something that your parties will kill quickly, you put it in an open area. Because that means players can easily get out of the cone. That means players can easily encircle the thing and keep each other guarded against the grapple. So that means, like, in a wide open area, the Mind Flayer is significantly weaker than it is in an enclosed area, which is why, as a DM, most likely you are going to put this in an enclosed area. Hallways are its best friend. Anywhere where it can isolate the entire party to hit that Mind Blast. And when you're building the encounter, a Mind Flayer does not fight alone. Now, that doesn't mean it'll fight with another Mind Flayer. Now, you could run groups of Mind Flayers, but these things get exponentially more dangerous the more Mind Flayers there are, because each one runs in and Mind Blasts. The odds of a player failing the intelligence saving throw when multiple Mind Blasts are going off becomes exponentially more likely. Be careful of that. You do not want to make the players feel like they just walked into a death trap unwittingly. Because if they hit them with 10 Mind Blasts, everyone fails, everyone dies. That's the problem. Now, well, and that's the thing. This thing doesn't have to kill them. Maybe this thing sees the party as a valuable as thralls, so it takes them and dominates them with Dominate Monster. Actually, I don't think you can target people with Dominate Monster. Let me check. But it's going to dominate them anyhow. It'll take them back to the Elder Brain. It just says creature. Now, so you can dominate a player with Dominate Monster. Now, it'll dominate them, take them back to the Elder Brain, turn them into a Mind Flayer. The issue with that is, like, hey, that creates a new interesting thing for the players, but odds are they've only got a couple days, they're going to become a Mind Flayer. That's not fun for the players. This thing has a huge TPK risk, especially if there's multiple of them, so you don't want that. Mainly what you'll do is you'll keep it with a couple thralls, which means you get to build out how its ideal group. Maybe it runs with 3 thralls, another spellcaster, which maybe it complements its spellcasting. Instead of Dominate, it's a healer. It runs with a ranger for those ranged attacks. It runs with a tank to keep so it can stay out of the fight. Now, there's the other variant here that, again, the only difference between the two is the spellcasting, but this one has a higher CR because it has more spells. It also has a +7 to hit, DC 15, that's standard. It gains a bunch of cantrips. It gains sleep, detect magic, disguise self, blur, invisibility, ray of enfeeblement, clairvoyance, lightning bolt, sending, confusion, hallucinatory terrain, telekinesis, and wall of force. Now, the spellcaster is more dangerous. Spellcasters are always more dangerous. This thing is more likely to run with a party of tanks just because it's like, yeah, no, you guys run in there, and I'll spellcast. The thing about Mind Flayers is also they see themselves as dominant, which means they have no problem with throwing away their thralls. If it needs to get away, oh yeah, it is leaving the thrall, which can be sad for the players because it's like, no, you're fighting slaves. And when the players understand, they may be less likely to attack this thing head on without knowing where its colony is at. Now, eliminating a colony is another matter. And we're going to be exploring the colonies as we keep going. I just wanted to start with the Mind Flayer because the basic Mind Flayer is the basic enemy you will see in a colony. These things are extremely dangerous TPK risks. Your parties are going to run the risk of all getting stunned and then getting their brains extracted. The instant kill factor of the extract brain and the fact that it can't be brought up by spells that someone would have at level 7, no Revivify, no, they don't have Resurrection, they don't have Reincarnate, which means they're going back to a church if they can revive them, or that player is just out and they need a new adventurer in their party. This thing, when you put an Elder Brain, of course an Elder Brain, it's the big bad. When you put a Mind Flayer in here, odds of you killing somebody are very high. You need to be prepared for that. Because when this thing grapples, it's going to pull back from the other enemies, and its guys are going to flank in and guard it if it's attacking with thralls. Its strategies, its thralls are here to defend it. And you play that anyway. Now, that's everything on the Mind Flayer. There's a ton more to cover with these guys. We are not done here. When I come back next week, we're going to be talking about the colony structure and how it works so that you guys are more prepared for when you build a dungeon with these guys. Of course, I'm your GM, Isaiah. Oh, right. If you're on Twitch, hit that follow. If you're on YouTube, you're this far. Come on, guys. You're 25 minutes in. Hit that subscribe. of course. Oh, right. Locked Loot Media. That's us as a whole. Locked Loot. We are doing a giveaway when we do our Magic the Gathering Modern Horizons 3. I have a box topper. It's not related to D&D. I know you guys are here for D&D. But I'm doing a giveaway when on that stream on the Saturday. I'm giving away a box topper doubling season, a Vampiric Tutor from, I believe, Commander Masters, a Demonic Tutor from Strixhaven, and an Avacyn Angel of Hope from the Vault. So join us there. Would love to have you guys. Of course, hit that subscribe, follow, like, do whatever you need to. That's where we're leaving it tonight.